Okay, so I am going to show you how to do the measurements. I'm just going to move things around here that you're going to need to draft up your pant block. So you're going to need to get a piece of some kind of elastic. It doesn't have, this is fairly skinny. You don't want anything really thick. I have some lime green. This is about 3/8 of an inch. Probably the widest I would use. If you've got a 1/4 inch, even if you've got some twill tape, it doesn't necessarily have to stretch. I like it to stretch because I'm going to sort of move it around a bit. So you want to tie first off, you want to get in something close fitting, okay? So I, for the purpose of this video, have on just tight black leggings and a tank top. So everything's tight fitting. If you're just at home doing this by yourself, then, take some of the layers off. You don't have to necessarily have layers. Now, mind you, it does help to have some leggings on just so you can kind of see the elastic, and it helps a little bit. Now, it definitely is a lot better if you've got someone there to help you to do the measuring, but it's not, it's not, if you don't, then there are ways around it. Okay, so first piece of elastic goes around your natural waist. So this is generally about an inch above your belly button, or if you put your hands on your hips and you kind of tip yourself from side to side, it's sort of that tipping point. You can kind of feel the bottom rib in there. So you want this tape or this elastic to go comfortably right there. So the first measurement you're going to take is obviously going to be your waist. So I think what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to show you how to measure all of the horizontal markings that you're going to need, and then we'll get to the vertical ones. So horizontal, first one is going to be your waist. So you're going to take your tape measure and you're going to put it around your waist. So again, you want to take that measure and you want it to either be sitting, depending on how big your elastic is, sitting just on top of it, or just so that you can read the measurement right, if it's right below it. So because this is really skinny, I'm just going to put it over top. And it helps to be in front of a mirror. You want to make sure when you take this measurement that you're standing and your tape measure is perfectly vertical or horizontal. So you don't want it tipped up at the back or at the front. So you're going to measure your waist. Take note of that measurement. You don't want to, remember, you're going to be sitting in these pants, okay? So you don't want to make this, you don't want to, go, okay, I know I'm probably over here. Well, that's not going to be comfortable by the end of the day if you're in a pair of pants. So make it comfortable, okay? This is your block that you're drafting. So it's not for anybody else, it's just for you. So make it according to your measurement. So, and I don't put my finger in, I just kind of put, measure it up, put my mark there, and take note, write that measurement down, okay? So that's your waist. That's the first measurement you're going to need. The next measurement you're going to need is your high hip. So your high hip is also, on a lot of people, it's maybe where your abdomen protrudes the most. Now, you may discover when you take your high hip and your low hip, your high hip is actually bigger than your low hip. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, if that's the case, when we start to put our measurements in for our block, we're going to use the larger of those two measurements. So I'm going to quickly I'm actually going to, I guess I'll use another piece of this skinny stuff here. So I'm just going to cut a piece big enough, maybe a little bit bigger, rather. Okay, so I'm going to tie this one. First off, I'm just going to kind of tie it around my middle. And I like having a few elastics or a few pieces of tape or whatever, just because when I start to measure my vertical lines and the distance from my waist to my high hip or my waist to my low hip, I have these markings here. Okay, so again, I'm going to put this tape around my high hip, okay? So that is generally about, could be anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 inches from your natural waist. And that's going to be measured from the side, okay, when we get to that measurement. So I'm putting this vertically. So I'll stand here. You can sort of see how these are both vertical. So this is my high hip. Again, take the tape measure and measure your high hip. Make sure your tape measure is right on or right above that tape or that elastic. So you're going to take that measurement and you're going to write it down. So the next measurement I want is going to be my low hip. Okay, so again, from the side, I'm going to get this in the right place and then I'll turn to the side. Your low hip is where your bum or your buttocks here, where it sticks out the most, wherever it's protruding the most is where you want to make sure that this is. And again, this is going to be about 7.5 to 8 inches from your natural waist. Okay, we're going from the natural waist to the low hip. So again, make sure that you have a good look. And when you're measuring, I want you to measure 3 times, or have somebody measure 3 times. Like, take your measurements, kind of shake it off, take them again. Take the middle measurement, okay? Sort of whatever, they may all come out at the same, but wherever you kind of come out, take the one that's kind of in the middle. So again, tape measure, and I have a really long one. This one's 120 inches. I like to have a good long tape measure. There's lots of times when I'm measuring a girth or something on somebody or even myself where it's greater than 60 inches. So again, take this measurement. Make sure your tape measure is sideways, and make sure you haven't got this elastic too tight, because if you do, you can see when you take this measure that I'm kind of, if I look at myself, okay, now I'm not too bad, but I felt like I was pulling it to the point where it was actually having a little bit of an indent. Again, you want accuracy. The more accurate you are with your measurements, the better your block is going to turn out, the less adjustments that you're going to have to make. Okay, so one, high hip, low hip. Now I want you to take, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to get your crotch depth, but what I like to do as well is I like to get this one at the very top of my thigh. So get it as close to the top. So even when you're doing your inseam measurement, you've got a guideline. You know exactly where the top of your thigh is. So get this one in here. You're going to take this measurement, okay? So this is your, I'm going to have you do 2 thigh measurements because we kind of follow 2 different methods for making the block. And I like to have both measurements because one kind of is a little bit, this one will maybe help a little bit with the crotch curve depending on your shape. So tape measure, and just get that tape measure up as high as you can go. Take your thigh. You can put thigh, say T thigh or top thigh. Okay, so you've got your measurement there. Next one we're going to do is our knee. So you want to do your knee bent because this pair of pants, chances are you're going to be sitting an awful lot in these. So you want to make sure that you put this tape or elastic right over the center of your knee. So when I bend my knee, that is over the center. So you might have to open your knee up to get the tape measure in, and then take this measurement with your knee bent. Okay, so that's my knee measurement. So at some point we are going to be measuring down the sides. Where the next one I want to do is I want to measure up about 8 inches from this knee, and that is going to be our lower thigh. So if you've tied this tight enough, you should be okay to just move it down. So kind of take where that elastic is, bring this is where it's helpful, the skinnier you can get. So bring it about 8 inches. And again, take a good look in the mirror. Always go back to your mirror and look in the mirror. You should be horizontal. So now take this measurement around your thigh and record that. Now, you can do both thighs, totally up to you. If you want to do a left and a right, and maybe that's not a bad idea. So even when you're doing your legs, do left and right. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're using the bigger of the two, okay? Because you can always take something in on one leg if it's that much different. But if you've got it too tight on one leg, then you don't want to have to, you want your block to be as close to a good fitting block before you, so you don't have to do too many alterations. Okay, so here we are. We've got, we're down thigh, knee. Now you're going to do your calf. You definitely want to be looking in the mirror for your calf. So this is going to be the fullest part of your calf. So again, take and make sure your tape, your elastic is nice and tight. Take your measurement and record that. So the next one we want to do is we want to do around the bottom. Now you can do your ankle and just keep that measurement. But what we're going to end up doing is we're going to have like, we're going to be drafting like a slack pant. So if you've got a pair of pants that you like the bottom width around, I would measure around them. You know, you want to, or just even take and just kind of give yourself a guess where you want to be. Because when we do our pants, when you've got your block and you're working on doing a working or drafting something from it, you can change the width of the bottom. Okay, so we just want to have a nice block that you can get your foot into, because remember, we're not going to have, this is going to be done out of just a muslin or a heavier cotton. We're not making this out of anything stretch to do the block for. We want to test all of this without stretch. So you want to make sure you're going to be able to get your foot around that. So I think, you know, you want to sort of take a look at a pair of pants that you like the bottom of. You know, 15 to 17 inches is kind of a good range in there, okay? So don't worry too much about that measurement. Okay, so that is all of our measurements going down. Now, actually, there's one more I want to do. So I actually want to do, we're just going to do like a drop waist. So this is your waist. You may want your pants to sit up on your waist, or you may have a comfortable place where you like your pants to sit. So that's going to be a lowered waist. That may be your high hip. Chances are it's going to be a little bit higher than that. It's probably only going to be, if you can see here, there's about 1.5 inches difference between the two. Now it's a little harder for me to get this to stay nice and straight all the way around. So you might have to play around a little bit with it, but find that point, that mark where you want to say, that's how high I would want my pants to be. I've got this, and it's basically just like my belly button is right where my finger is. So it's just below it. Okay. So take that and make note of that measurement. And just, if there's not a place on your sheet for it, just put lowered waist. Okay. Just keep note of that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take note of all of the vertical. Okay. Now we're at the vertical measurements. So these are a little trickier, definitely if you're on your own, but there's a way around it. So I'm switched to a little bit shorter tape measure right now, just because of how I want to take these vertical measurements. So we're going to start with, I've kind of placed everything relatively in the right spot. However, things can move around a little bit when I actually get measuring, but for my setup, I've got everything nice and horizontal. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure and I'm going to slide it in these pieces of elastic that I have and just get it so that it comes up my side seam like so. And I just want to make sure that it's, this is where looking in the mirror is going to be very helpful if you're on your own, but this is what makes it possible. So key one is to make sure that the one for my waist is where it belongs and it's not rolled up too high or if it's too low. So make sure you double check where that one is. So I'm going to bring the top of my tape measure to the middle or the base of my side elastic. Just make sure that everything is straight and don't pull it too much. You don't want, I mean, you definitely don't want this slack, but you don't want it pulled tight that it's pulling down on the side. You want this to be your natural side seam. So this is from waist to floor. It's also called the out seam. Okay, so I've got it at the top here, and I've got it braced under my heel. So now I can let it go, and I have a measurement of 40 inches. Okay, so that is now, that's going to be recorded as my out seam. And again, you won't pull this out like I just did. You'll leave it in and record your measurements, pulling this up. So what we're going to do is we are going to work from the bottom to the top. So make sure your tape measure is flat. There's no twist in it. And give a little pull there. Again, once you've moved around, make sure all of your measurements are in the right spot. And if you find that you're a little too high, if you just kind of sort of scooch that way under the tape measure again. So now I'm going to have this at my waist. I'm going to put the bottom one at my fullest part of my calf, which I have it at. So double check that it's there. And if you can see in the mirror, then make a record of it. If not, bend down, make a note, have your notes and your measurement chart right handy, right beside you. So you're going to do your waist to your calf. Then if you don't have one around your knee, you're going to move thigh one out of the way, but you're going to move that knee one. And remember, so bend your knee, make sure that it's over the fullest part of your knee. And again, double check the top, measure down, take a look, see where it's sitting. Make sure it's sitting vertically or horizontal. You want the elastic horizontal, you're taking a vertical measurement. So make sure that it's right in the right spot, record that measurement. Next, you're going to go up to your thigh, and you can either do your thigh as 8 inches above. If you don't, rather than remeasuring that, maybe when you measure it the first time to get the horizontal measurement, put a little piece of chalk or a safety pin or something there so you know where that 8-inch mark is. So now you can move that elastic back to where it belongs. Again, waist, double check down to the thigh. You're going to bring this elastic back up so that it's sitting right at the top of your thigh. So right level with where your torso and your leg meets, so the crotch level. And take a note of that measurement there. I've got 9 3/4, it's almost 10 inches. Actually, if I turn, it's hard to kind of do this in turn. This is where sometimes it's helpful to have somebody, or else maybe sort of start so that you're kind of, you'll play around with this tape measure under your foot there and get so you're able to move around. But so you want to go from the waist to the very top of your thigh. Then check your hip mark, so your low hip, so waist to low hip, waist to high hip, which is fullest part of your abdomen. So on me, that is 2 3/4 of an inch, it looks like, almost 3 inches. Like I say, have a good look. Don't rush through your measurements. Take them slowly. If you're not sure about something, take it again. And if you have the time, take it and then go and do something and then come back and take them all over again, just to see that you're still accurate, okay? It doesn't hurt to do this a couple of times, okay? The more accurate your measurements, the better your block will be, okay? So now the only other one you want to do is, if you remember, we did that dropped waist, so our waist is a little lower. So bring this tape measure up and make a note. Mine is at 1.25 inches from my waist, okay? And again, go back, make sure that waist tape is right on your waist, that it hasn't moved around. Okay, so these are now all of your vertical measurements, okay? So now the only other one that we really want to make sure we have is our crotch depth. So we're going to, the crotch depth was actually waist to this thigh. That's one way of measuring it. A second way of measuring it is subtracting your inseam, which we haven't done, from your outseam. So your inseam, again, you're going to do this just like you did your outseam and all of your outside measurements. Put that tape so that it goes around one of these sides here and kind of pull it up a little. If you've got a longer tape measure, that sort of helps a little here. So bring this up and bring this tape measure so that it's at the very top of your thigh, okay? So you want as close to where your thigh and your leg are joined, or your torso and your leg are joined, okay? So that's going to be your inseam. So that's from the floor up here. So again, you're going to take a look at that, and mine is almost 30 inches. So that's my inseam. So another way to determine your crotch depth is to take your inseam measurement and subtract it from your outseam measurement, and that will give you your crotch depth, which is basically should be the same as measuring this side up to your waist, okay? And if I take a look at mine, they're pretty well dead on. Another way you will notice in books and other places that they tell you to measure for your crotch depth is to sit on a firm chair. And I'm doing this sideways so you can kind of see. So make sure again that this tape is right at your waist. Take and put it at your waist and measure to the base, like where your seat and the chair are, okay? So right on that spot. And I'm coming out at almost 10 inches, okay? If this measurement is off, perhaps your chair isn't firm, perhaps you're not sitting up straight, like if I kind of bend over, or you're leaning, okay? So make sure you're sitting up straight. You should come out with roughly the same measurement for all of those, okay? The other measurement that I want to do is I want you to do your crotch length. So this is measured between your legs. Good reason to have on something nice and tight fitting. You're going to take your tape measure at the front and basically put it right at your waist at the front. And your tape, just make sure that your tape at the back is they're both nice and horizontal. And you're going to take that measurement there. If you feel your tape measure, you don't want to pull it tight like it's uncomfortable, because remember, this is forming that curve that's going to be your crotch curve, but you don't want it too loose, okay, because we are going to put some ease in here, okay? So try to keep this, again, as true to your actual measurement. Okay, so I'm going to come out here. I've kept my finger where it is at the back, so I've got that measurement, and you put this down as your crotch, or crotch length, okay? Now, we can go as far as actually doing a front and a back length, which is a little bit trickier. Again, it's almost easier to just do 1/2. So you get your tape measure at the front, so it's sitting at your waist, kind of, and hold it down, and you kind of, now you have to sort of figure out where your actual top of your inseam is. If you've got your, it gets a little awkward here. If you've got your thigh measurement up where it belongs, kind of get up there. Definitely you want to do this either with somebody you're really friendly with or by yourself. And you could put, there are some examples that they have you put like a washer or something hanging so it will hang directly in the middle, okay? It's, you know, definitely something you can try. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually flipping this through here. So it's at the back, so it's going to stay, and that way it's not going to fall around. And I'm just going to sort of go in here and find where my inseam measurement was and make a note of that, okay? If you can do this measurement, it's a good one to have for reference. As you, when you get your block kind of done, you can go back and double check it. And it just may, you know, it may help you to determine whether you need to raise up the back of your block or not. But it's a little trickier to do. Definitely that one helps if you have somebody that you're comfortable with helping you take that measurement. Okay, I think that is all of our measurements now. So you can re-watch this and plug all the measurements into the measurement chart. And like I say, do it a couple of times. See whether you get a few different answers. Okay,